Some investor said, if I borrow $1 million, that's on me. But if I borrow $100 million, that's on you, the bank. It's like, why did you give me that much money? But this then adds on, but if I borrow $1 billion, that's on my wife.
This podcast contains the arguably witty banter of two friends, Skippy and Doogles, that like to debate about investing. The content is intended to be entertaining and for informational purposes only, not investment advice. You should do your own research and consult a financial professional before using any of the information in this podcast, and especially before investing.
Skippy and Doogles talk investing for the last episode of 2025. This feels really wild to me. This will be the end of our 5th year of doing this. I remember at the beginning, we said, let's do like 20 episodes or so and see if we still care and if other people still care. We're now 5 years in. This is going to be episode 258. What? Who are we?
I mean, I forgot about that. We still care criteria because this might be our last show, Doogles. I thought I was being held hostage over here.
I forgot that I was allowed to care.
Let's not talk about it. We might celebrate at 300, but
okay, there we go.
It's a lot.
All right. Okay,
yeah.
We can celebrate 300. But thank you, everybody, for sticking around with us for 5 years. It's pretty cool. For those that do not remember some history here, what happened is like Skippy and I would talk. We'd have these kinds of conversations, a little different, obviously, because they weren't public, but had these conversations, not weekly, but we'd have them. And then in late 2020, kind of said, let's just record a couple and see if anybody cares. And y'all have stuck around with us in Guatemala and Austria and Canada, and it's pretty cool. U.S. as well.
Ukraine.
Okay.
Too. Shout out.
Ukraine as well. So this episode, last 2025, mostly going to do some quick hits. So we go through rapid fire-esque compared to what we normally do, a lot of things. And to start off, we're going to do some shout outs. And Skippy, of course, has mini rants because that's all he knows how to do is rant. But we're going to do some quick hits, things like what's going on with Jim Beam? There's some rich dude in L.A. that left his wife with a pile of poo. What is going on with tax dodging for the ultra rich? All sorts of things. We're just going to do quick hits. So to start off, reach into the fishbowl. And Skippy, you've got shout outs.
I have so many shout outs. First of all, we got some new subscribers this week who took advantage of our year-end sale. Thank you for that. I hope you're listening to the show early. And I know you're going to get the year-end portfolio review, which is going to happen next week. And that's going to be so much fun. It will be, it's going to be a special episode, Doogles, because we have some talking to do, some debriefing to do. The market is in a weird spot.
Such a weird place. Such a weird place.
If you're interested in grabbing that sale before year-end, you can go to skippydoogles.supercast.com and grab a premium subscription. This really special shout-out here. I mean this sincerely. Our boy Chris sent in a podcast recommendation of a short thesis on one of my holdings, and I'm just so appreciative and thankful for that. I obviously listened. I was not convinced, not even really bothered by the short thesis, but I love it. It's like that kind of shout out from our typical listener is just a kind thing, right? It's like, I heard you guys mention this on the show. Give this a listen. And I'm happy. This is where I have to keep my rant short. I can talk to you about the short thesis and why I think it's wrong, but it's just the thoughtfulness that really counts.
Yeah.
Loved it. Very kind.
I think it's amazing. The kindness is amazing because we discuss how you and I act as sounding boards for each other sometimes during our investments. It's good to get someone that just pushes back and says, have you thought about this? Have you looked at it this way? We love that. And so getting a short thesis is an act of kindness because it can challenge the thinking. Have I not seen a certain angle? Should I think about this in a different way? It doesn't have to necessarily change your opinion. So I appreciate it.
Yeah. I'll try not to rant on how I thought this short thesis was very bizarre. Basically said it's a really good business, and I'm not sure if it will continue. And it's like, yeah, me too, dude. Like, I don't know the future, but it was like the profitability is great, and they're the insurer of last resort, et cetera, et cetera. I won't go into that. But the thing I love about getting someone with the counter argument is that is investing. There are always people on the other side, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you're contrarian, especially if you're trying to outperform the market. by nature, that means you do something different. And it means you do, in my case, it means you buy stuff that's hated or has warts. We're going to talk about one of those that has plenty of warts right now. And I think we'll just transition to that. So speaking of things that are hated, Doogles, what's hated right now I think more than anything else? I could be wrong. Actually, chemical refinery, petrochemical stocks.
Solvay?
Hated.
Are you talking about Solvay again?
I'm long gone with Solvay, but we're going to talk about that at our year in review. Right there with them, though, is alcohol stocks, especially U.S. bourbon stocks.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? So if I told you that a maker of a product that has been pretty much consistently profitable for 230 years just decided we're not going to make any of that product this year.
For a
would you
year.
be concerned?
For a year.
This is Jim Beam. They came out this week and said that I believe it's their flagship distillery in Kentucky. They've been making bourbon at this place for over 100 years. They're just going to skip this year.
Yeah, we're just good.
There's not enough demand.
We're good. We're good
Doogles,
this year.
Why on earth would there not be enough demand? Maybe if this is like the American spirit, where half of the consumption happens in Canada and Europe, and we managed to alienate those friends who have now made it their job to drink anything but the American spirit of choice.
Yeah. I mean, the Canadians hate us right now. It's the only feeling that I can have. Like, to the point that they're not traveling to the country nearly as much. So I don't know if we hit on this in the show or not, but we were going back and forth about Vegas, and Canadian tourism to Vegas has caused a material drought. Well, not the full thing, but like a material gap, I should say, in Vegas tourism, because that has dropped considerably. They're not buying our whiskey. Anyway, the Canadians are flexing. They go, "You thought we Mr. Nice Guy." I don't know what accent that was. I know
That's not a Canadian accent.
I don't think it is an accent of any country.
All right, so here's the official news. Jim Beam has decided to pause production at the Happy Hollow location starting January 1st of 2026 for the whole year. They say, "We're always assessing our production levels to best meet customer demand, and recently met with our team to discuss volumes of 2026. Decided to pause, blah, blah, blah." This has me flabbergasted. And of course, you sent this over to me because I own a very similar stock called Brown-Forman Group.
Yep.
Brown-Forman is the maker of Jack Daniels, among other things. Brown-Forman is currently trading at 2012 prices.
Yep.
What year is it again? Is it 2015?
2025. You are telling the employees over the last 13 years you've produced no value for me.
No value, despite share count being reduced by about 20%. Free cash flows maybe doubling, but they're kind of volatile. Clearly, like, investors are not dumb. People are going, "Wait, your sister company just decided they don't need to make product anymore?" Like, that can't be good for you. This is one. I remember pitching oil stocks when oil prices were briefly negative.
I remember
and
that.
saying, "Just buy it, guys. Like, we'll figure out the details later. Like, just buy it."
Yeah.
This is one, if your time horizon is right. And for most people, it's not going to be a right time horizon, because I have no clue if this takes 10 years to recover or 3 years to recover or whatever else. Mm-hmm. But if you find this brand compelling and want a company that I'm only looking at a 20-year chart, they always make money. They almost always buy back shares. They almost, that in the last 20 years at least, they always have free cash flow. Like, it kind of is what it is. It's not like they're reinventing the business model.
Yep.
That they've been running for 200 years. Is this year going to suck? Yeah. Is next year going to suck? Yeah. Like, I don't know. Will it continue to suck through the Trump presidency? Will we get a Supreme Court ruling that says tariffs have to be rolled? I don't know the future, right?
Yep.
I fully understand the negative sentiment here, but if your time horizon's right, we don't give stock picks on the show. We give research recommendations, and like, I love these companies that have been around for 200-300 years that have a really simple business model and have stood the test of time through prohibition and other things. Like this, I think we'll be all right. I just don't know what it is. I find it to be a very compelling research recommendation right now.
I think you said enough. I don't need to respond to that. All right. Let's reach into the fishbowl and talk about Gary Winnick. This is based off of a Wall Street Journal piece that came out this week. I'll try and give the briefest of histories, and then we can do a little banter back and forth. Gary Winnick came up in the 1970s, 1980s. He at one point was part of Drexel Burnham. If you recall, that was Michael Milken's shop where they were a bond. He was a bond guy, right? The reason I actually bring that up is because he is a debt guy. He is a leverage guy. That's what he is. Being a leverage guy, he decided to get himself a whole bunch of leverage. And this really started, if you go to the late 1990s, there was a company called Global Crossing that he began. This Global Crossing did exactly what it said it was going to do. It was going to cross globally. We touched on last week how the equivalent of now building data centers for AI was building out fiber optic cable for the internet back in the dot-com era. That's what Global Crossing was looking to do. Let's go across the Atlantic and build cable that goes underneath the sea. Global Crossing got way ahead of itself, or got way ahead of demand, and he levered himself up a whole bunch, sold a whole bunch. I'm going to let you hit on more detail there of the stock during that time. And between 1997 and 2002, the company went from starting up and full of promise to bankrupt. That's the short history before we even get into the real core of why this Wall Street Journal piece came out. What do you want to add to that?
The whole piece is fascinating. You sent me this piece with a quote that said Skippies with exclamation points, which goes back to my idea of maybe a true measure of wealth is what you spend on a yearly basis relative to your total net worth, right?
Yep.
It's some gauge. It's not, I made $1 million this year. It's, I spent $2 million this year and I made $1 million this year. And this Gary and family who bought the most expensive house in America in the late 90s? I mean, They were known as wealthy, known in philanthropy circles, which by all means, I give you credit for that. They were showy with the wealth. And
aggressively so.
And his last, it's debatable, 5-10 years of life is him calling people begging for financing, basically, because he has no liquid net wealth. None whatsoever. And what you alluded to at the end is his wife did not know that he pledged basically everything he owns, including his residencies, including her wedding ring, 1,000 other things, until he dies. And the bankers show up and say, you're homeless now. And can we have your wedding ring too?
What?
I'm only slightly exaggerating.
No, I don't think
story.
I don't think you're exaggerating at all. At what part were you exaggerating?
Well, let me say, I hope that she doesn't end up homeless. Literally, the most expensive house in America, at least in the late 90s, it's still up there, is not his. He just, it was like he was renting the place. I don't know how else to say it. Okay. There's one factor that I want to point out, though. So I'm sure he's a very smart guy. I'm sure he's a very lucky guy. What he did with Global Crossing is fascinating and the parallels to AI are so amazing, right? He captivated people's minds and thoughts with, I'm laying the cable that goes from New York to London across the Atlantic Ocean.
Yep.
I need financing to do that. When we do that, it's world changing. And the story got so big that it truly became a global mandate. It was no longer just New York to London. It was, how about LA to Tokyo, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
And he sold this brilliant idea. Not surprisingly, the company's bankrupt, by 2002?
Yeah.
But in the run-up in the late 90s, he owns enough stock. He manages to sell 700 plus million in stock and add it to his personal fortune. That's a nice headwind. Props for that. He went through lawsuits later about misleading investors and other things. So I don't know. He timed that perfectly is what I will say. Whether he knew it was a house of cards all along or whether he only knew it was a house of cards at the very end.
If you believe this dream that you're pitching, why would you sell that much stock?
It's a decent point.
I don't know what percent of the total that was. That I don't know. But $700 million has to be a decent percentage.
Yeah, completely. like there's such a fine line there, and I'm not going to do a deep dive and figure out what percentage that is, right? Yeah. But there's such a fine line between being a brilliant financier that leads great businesses that can sell a vision to people, and being a scam artist. I don't know what side of the line this might be on, but it's a fascinating part of the story. And then the sad part of the story is just it doesn't end well. So he had vast wealth before the 700 million came back to him, and he really seemed to struggle to live within his means. Going back to the Skippies.
That is an understatement. like Tom down the street struggles to live within their means. This dude.
Oh, okay. But this is my entire point. It doesn't matter how much comes in if you spend more. It does not matter if 700 million comes in. If you spend 800 million, you still feel broke all the time.
Yeah, it's the
same.
You
still sell your wife's wedding ring. I mean, it's sad.
It makes me think about some investor. If I borrow $1 million, that's on me. But if I borrow $100 million, that's on you, the bank. Like, it's like they said some version of that. Because, like, why did you give me that much money? But this then adds on, but if I borrow $1 billion, that's on my wife. There's some line that was crossed where, because it's kind of, if he weren't married, I say that because if he weren't married, didn't have kids or whatever, he dies and it's on the bank. Like, you really shouldn't have given me that much money. You have to figure this out. But he's now has like basically shoveled a pile of crap onto all of the future for his family. And that's messed up. All right.
I mean, they have detailed pictures of this home they bought in the year 2000 for $94 million, right? And then they talked about the 2.5-year renovation process with 250 workers on site each day. It's a beautiful home. Yeah. Absolutely beautiful. Yep. I would think his wife now doesn't care about the $20,000 fridge that they meticulously picked out when she's about to be homeless.
Yeah, she just wants a fridge. Can I get a fridge?
It just seems...
Yeah. It's sad. It's sad.
Misguided.
It's really sad.
Yeah, sad. There we go.
All right. Okay, next fishbowl item. You want to start talking about taxes? Or you
let's continue this. It's kind of depressing theme. The Financial Times has this piece on how tax trackers influence wealthy Americans' holiday plans. The headline is a little salacious because it says, and there's some quotes in here that say, like, I won't even single out the people, but it'll be like, I wasn't able to visit my grandson Timmy because they live in New York City and I had spent 183 days in New York City already, and I need to spend the rest of my time in Buffalo to dodge taxes on the New York City tax code, or vice versa with international destinations or whatever.
Yeah.
Basically, what I did not know is if you're wealthy enough and care enough about taxes. Again, this ties into the previous conversation we had, because if I was worth $500 million, I think one of the things I would buy with that $500 million is the ability not to care about where I live. I'd actually live where I want to live.
Yeah.
But call me crazy, okay? So there are very sophisticated phone apps that track your location in different locales. And the reason they do this is, one, so you can claim the cheaper tax rate, but two, to build an audit trail. So if you get audited, you can say, no, my phone was with me all the time, and it shows that I only spent 182 days in New York City, or 182 days in San Francisco, whatever the case may be.
So I think you just answered a question that I had, which was around how would the IRS even know that they stepped foot? And what you're saying is, if they get audited, and because of the amount of money they have, they might have a higher percentage chance of getting audited. So
they should, yes.
They should. I don't know if they do.
Especially if they run a business in New York City and they claim to live in Buffalo, New York. Sorry, I'm hung up on that example because those are such different locales.
They're not even close to each other.
Worlds apart.
Yeah, I'm going back to the point that you raised a minute ago, because I agree with this. Just like we talked about last week, if there are some tax loopholes, or maybe not even loopholes, just tax code, not loopholes. If there's just tax code that says that you can do this and therefore your taxes will be decreased, change the tax code. But if you know that that's the tax code, and do it if you're a wealthy person. I get that. To me is different than it. like causing you to not go see your family over the holidays because of saving money on taxes. Like, you're not, that to me is something you just go, okay, well, it's going to cost a little more in taxes this year, but I've got $100 million.
Yeah, to be fair, you and I aren't paying $10 million in taxes.
I hope not, because that's a problem.
Let me read a couple of quotes. All right. Klein said some of his clients fly into New Jersey and wait on one side of the George Washington Bridge, which connects to New York City, until after midnight to avoid triggering another day in the state. You're letting tax law and the fear of the higher taxes run your life. Here's another one. I would have liked to have taken the grandkids to the tree a few years ago. This is referring to Rockefeller Center. But I couldn't. He literally, the tax app said, no, you've been to New York City too much. You're not allowed to take your kids.
Does airspace count? Like, could you helicopter over the tree area to look down with a telescope?
These are questions I do not know, and I'm happy not to know.
It's wild to me. I think you exactly said it right. Of you're letting the tax code dictate your life. And that's just a line that isn't even a fine line.
I could go on. I read the Wall Street Journal and Financial Times and everything related to that enough that I'm very rarely surprised by an article. But listen, props to the editors, props to the author. To even have this idea is brilliant. And if you have 500 million, by all means, if you want to dodge taxes, you should dodge taxes. And if there's an app on your phone to do it, by all means. But my goodness, take the kids to Rockefeller Center.
My gosh. Daddy's not allowed outside of Monaco, so we can't.
Yeah, seriously. That's what it is. It's like, nope, sorry, I'm in the tax haven. Then we can't get together on Christmas this year because it cost me $5 million. Okay.
But we got Zoom.
Well, the other thing, I mean, and I understand why this doesn't happen, but the other thing, it's clearly not outlined in the article, is how many people are flying to New Jersey, ditching their phone in a hotel in Jersey City and driving across the bridge and being phoneless for 3 hours.
Yo, that car better be analog, though. You better be in like a 1964 Chevelle, because that's what I'm saying.
And what if you have an Apple Watch or something?
No,
nope, I mean, there's so many ways this could go wrong.
You're going buck naked.
What if on the toll road they take your picture? All right, with that, let me reach into the fishbowl. We've talked about this before. I just have to hammer on this one more time. The Financial Times did a breakdown on World Cup final prices, they compared it to tiers going back to 2022. You guys just gotta subscribe to the email list and see this chart. Like in 2026, say, the top tier best ticket to get into the World Cup final was maybe $800, and the get in the door price was like $200.
Mm-hmm.
It's steadily risen since then.
But the World Cup is supposed to be, this is not the language that FIFA would use, but I'm just going to call it like a marketing campaign for getting the world together, unified around soccer. That's the purpose of it. Historically, it's like the Olympics is very similar. Whereas like the Olympics are supposed to be a place that like brings different folks together that ordinarily wouldn't come together. It's about involvement. It's about people getting pride. And when you charge exorbitant prices, it's not what it is.
Well, the Olympics has the same issue because it was in the late 90s where NBC started writing them massive checks, like more money than they ever imagined for the U.S. television market. And now it's very clearly a TV show catered mostly to the United States of America because that's where all the money is.
And it's not what it's supposed to be.
Yeah. It's no surprise. I mean, the counter argument to this, I'll tell you today's prices. Best seat in the house is like almost $9,000. Get in the door price is $4,100 or something. I mean, just insane. Like, why I say you have to see this chart is because it's a fairly reasonable straight line slope, and then like 2026 in New York City breaks the charts. Actually, in New Jersey, so the tax dodgers can attend this event, and they will because tickets are $8,000. The counter argument here is you have the world's most popular sport in the world's richest and highly populated city. It's not the world's most populous city, but you know what I mean.
Yep.
Of course, ticket prices should be higher, right? I think they should be higher by a factor of 2, not by a factor of 4. It's just so sad. We both have young kids who like soccer, and when we heard the World Cup was coming to the States, it was natural to be like, let's see if we can make that work.
Yeah.
You're right. All the press I've, like in Mexico City, the average price of a hotel is 9x what it typically would be during World Cup games. And then ticket prices are 4x what they have been historically. It just feels slap in the face.
Yes. I could rant even more, but I'll just leave it at that. I think it's egregious. Is the way I would frame it. Egregious. One egregious, a whole egregious. Okay, I'm going to reach into the fishbowl, and I really want to get your view here because you understand this industry and are telling me, don't worry, be happy, bro. So I saw a chart this week that's showing that U.S. banks are currently sitting on $337 billion in unrealized losses. And the chart goes back for the last 20 years and shows the same stats. I didn't fact check any of this, but I'm just going to rely on, it says source FDIC, the same stats going back to 2006, and they're just minuscule. The charts don't even register basically on here up until 2021, and then you get into 2022, and the unrealized losses start to go quite high, reaching about $600 billion, and then they've been gradually coming down since then, currently sitting at about $300 billion. You're telling me, meh, no big deal. Why?
Well, one, this chart first made an appearance in late 2022 when you talked about, what'd you say, 330
billion today.
7 billion?
Yep.
Yeah, back when this value was more like 700 billion.
Yep.
So where were you screaming from the rooftops when it was 700 billion?
I think we talked about this back then.
Yeah, you're right. We did. Touche.
Yeah.
This is concerning, but this has become a doomsday chart. And I'm going to give a very simple definition. If you have a better way to describe this, or if you take issue with this, please let me know. Let's talk about a regional bank, I don't know, a top 20 bank in the U.S. A lot of their portfolio, they're sitting on all these deposits. A lot of what they loan that money out to is commercial real estate. That's just how the system has evolved.
Yep.
And so they own commercial real estate in their dominant region of the country or dominant regions of the country. And when mortgage rates are 3 or 4, they underwrite those and say that property's worth $10 million. And then when interest rates are, this is why I want to hammer on the 2022 period, when interest rates are 8 or 9, all of a sudden that property is worth $60 million, and that sits on their books. I think that's the simplest example to explain kind of what's happening in this chart. Is there a better way to describe it?
I think that's a good way to describe it. But part of that is where this spiked for me was not doomsday for banks specifically. Where it spiked for me was that when you just said when interest rates are 8 or 9%, that's not where interest rates went to. That's the one thing I'll pick on. That's not where, you're talking about mortgage rates. So yes, they did go there.
Well, and really commercial property, which is slightly different.
That's even different. I'm going to talk about the Fed funds rate because that's the data I pulled, which is not the same rate as what you just talked about.
But there's
correlation. There's some correlation
there. Yeah.
So I pulled the Fed funds rate back to 1954. I could go back further, but the Federal Reserve just had that on their site, so it's easy enough for me. It's enough data. If you look at both the average and the median of the Fed funds rate going back that far is about in the mid 4s. Let's just call it 4.5%. It's 4.6 on average, 4.3 median. So about 4.5% is, I'm going to call it just the typical rate. It fluctuates around that, so there is no real steady typical rate, but let's just call it 4.5. That's historical average.
Let's just call it average. That's what it actually is.
Yeah. I'm going to call it standard. No, yeah. So average 4.5%. Where we went to in that big spike up into 2022 was a little over 5%. So we effectively went to average, and this is what happened.
But where did we come from?
Exactly. This is the issue, is that over the last 15 years, interest rates have effectively been zero up until 2015, and then they went up a little bit and then came back down again during COVID. But they've effectively been zero. And the issue that I take, actually, where this chart shows for me, is that average rates do not sustain the economy. And that feels like a problem. The fact that there's so much we have to lower that's coming from the administration, to me says, like, we can't sustain the average. This is what happens when we go to average rates, not anything that's like off the wall. It's not the early 80s when the Fed funds rate was at 19%. That's very different.
I agree that aspect is concerning, but average doesn't matter as much as the delta from effectively 0 to 5 or 6%. Like, what's the highest it really got?
5.33. Yeah.
5.33.
And that's when people were yelling about the lack of sustainability of that interest rate.
Yeah. Right. So if we started at 5.33 and went to 10.6, you'd have the same delta. And in this, the way the banks have been operating recently, you'd have a similar unrealized loss on their balance sheets, in my opinion.
But don't you see an issue with that?
It's poor risk management, and way too much of their portfolio is in commercial real estate, and commercial real estate has been hit on 1,000 fronts. Sorry, I'm just hung up on that example because it's the easiest one. But COVID happened, and all of a sudden people went, oh, I don't need to go to the office anymore. And companies went, oh, I don't actually need office anymore. And that happened at the same time that rates went up 5%. So it's a really bad series of events for banks.
But wouldn't you push back on this point, because you understand banks better than I do? My interpretation when I look at this is that this chart is all well and good, assuming that interest rates continue to decline.
The numbers on this chart decrease significantly if interest rates go back to 0.
If they don't, if interest rates stay at average, which is roughly where we are, what happens to this chart?
Well, this gets really interesting because this might be why our Treasury Secretary in the current administration seems to be incredibly hung up on interest rates. Remember that? What was this? What was the note of?
Yeah, there was like the
Trump's
billboard.
Personal note. He had a thing, and he had all the interest rates in the world, and then he had a Sharpie marker and said, "Current interest rates are here," and then he said, "Should be here." And his target rate was like 0.5% or something. Let's not forget he's a former property developer.
Yes.
But I'm weird, right? I run businesses to be anti-fragile, and I would run a real estate portfolio the same way. I think you have to be thinking about the worst case scenarios, and clearly the banks did not.
No.
Because we didn't even reach the worst case scenario. The worst case scenario is COVID plus financial crash plus interest rates with a 10% delta instead of a 5% delta.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Like we didn't, as we talked about in our opinions, this is not taking into account a lot of the micro stuff that happens in people's everyday lives. Just thinking about it from the aggregate macro perspective. In our views, the interest rate, the Fed funds rate needed to be a lot higher. It needed to move up a lot higher than it did. It didn't do that. I'd
still argue it should be a lot higher, but there's factors like this.
Yeah, that's like, but you lower interest rates right now, that's problematic. You're lowering interest rates into a like supply constrained world with uncertainty that's raised by tariffs, with asset prices that are straight up bubblicious, strawberry flavor.
You know how this works, though. You take the path of least resistance as much as possible until the whole thing blows up. And I'm not predicting that, not at all. But no one takes the hard road that gives us a better future. That's not what our politicians have done, maybe ever, but certainly not in the last 100 years.
FDR.
Maybe FDR. Maybe what Reagan did with interest rates. Maybe. But I'm sure there's some other examples.
What I push back on myself, though, is that FDR, I think, he took a long slog, but the Great Depression gave him cover for it.
Yeah, right? It might, I don't know that path of least resistance is the right term, but there's a political environment that allowed for a longer term perspective.
Yep.
Anyway, when in the pre-show meeting, when you're a little fired up about this and I'm going, I don't really care. Yeah, if these unrealized losses become losses, that's bad. The government just steps in. It doesn't really do much.
That does a lot, though. If the government steps in, that's a big deal here.
It is.
Because, so let's, hold on, I'm going to step back. There's so many different arguments, and I know we need to move on to something else. The macro environment that's existing right now is very different than the macro environment that existed in 2008, 2009 during the great financial crisis. When you had, at that point in time, you had demand from the consumer perspective that was fleeting because people couldn't afford to pay their mortgages. So there was a big pullback in consumer demand. You had banks that were like, I can't do anything either right now. My balance sheets are crap. So the demand picture was so different. And if you go back to, we always talk about how inflation is too much money chasing too few goods. You had no money chasing a lot of goods back then. So decreasing the interest rates, you can increase spending. Like, it could take a little bit of time. You have some slack in the system. It's complicated, but you have some slack in the system. Right now, we have a supply constrained situation, not a demand constrained situation. Demand is starting to fleet a little bit, but it's not like it was back then. The government injecting a whole bunch into the economy at that point is it's just scary. So anyway, all right, I'm gonna step off my soapbox. Okay. All right, gonna move on.
My fishbowl reach is gonna shock you because it's about sports business.
Sacre bleu!
Kansas City Chiefs. If you did not know, the Kansas City Chiefs have never been located in Kansas,
nor a city.
Fun fact. Well, kind of.
Have you been to
the
arena?
An interstate?
Yeah, it's on the side of a highway. But
interstate in Missouri. The Kansas City Chiefs, if you do not follow football, historically have been one of the more successful franchises. They win Super Bowls
in the last decade.
And what they managed to do is pit the state of Kansas against the state of Missouri and say, write us a check for our new stadium. I do not blame them for this at all. I would do the exact same thing. But the ownership is worth, I believe it's going on $30 billion, and they will receive basically $3 billion in subsidies to relocate and build their stadium across state lines. If you're not familiar with Kansas City, and who would be, it's not an incredibly populous place. There's not a ton going on, but the majority of the action happens on the Missouri side.
Yeah. Okay.
So to your point, yeah, right now the stadium's next to an interstate and not really anywhere. It will continue to be outside of the happening district because it will be next to another interstate across state lines. I find this, I don't have words. Again, I totally get the math. I would do the exact same thing. I understand why the state of Kansas, and sorry, I'm not trying to throw shade. I have family there, but there's not much going on in the state of Kansas. I understand why you would bend over backwards to try and be like, we have a professional sports team now. Totally get it. And so maybe that's just great for them that they happen to have a sports franchise that's on state lines.
And are the Royals staying? Would the Royals be staying where they are?
For the moment, but that's to be determined. Okay. And if Kansas can find some more money, I'm sure they'll be throwing it their way.
Interesting. Different multi-state situation, much less substantial, I would say. But was interesting to me is just this past week, I was in North Carolina, went to an amusement park called Carowinds. Are you familiar?
Never heard of it.
Okay. It's a Six Flag park. This park is situated such that down the middle of the park is the state line between South Carolina and North Carolina. Right down the middle of the park. They have it, it's drawn, they have it's a thing, right? It's like where the states come together. It's a thing. I went with my in-laws. My brother-in-law tells me that it's a shtick, it's a thing normally. During COVID, it became more than that because the two states had different policies. And so they opened half of the park and could not open the other half of the park. It's quite interesting.
I thought you were going to say, again, not throwing shade to either of those states, that one side is gambling and open carry and open alcohol, and the other side's all buttoned up, have to wear a collared shirt or something.
It could be like that too.
Is there any noticeable difference on either side today?
And what people wear?
No, just in what's available to you. Is there?
That's I need to go back and do a more forensic investigation as to what the foods are that are served. Because there could be some difference. I didn't notice that this time around though.
There's got to be some. I would really play that up. I'd be like, you can get this sort of beverage only on this side of the park.
That could actually be pretty. Yeah, it could be pretty interesting. Is that does the fishbowl run dry, or do you have anything else?
One more thing.
Okay.
United came out with this killer chart about the most booked international destination from every state.
I don't think I believe this.
Why not?
Because it don't make no sense. Like, in short. But continue. I'll let you finish for the people, and then we.
Holistically, the reason I have to tell you what happens across all states before we talk about state by state is because it's so surprising. Holistically, the most booked international destinations from across the United States are 1 London, 2 Cancun, 3 Tokyo, 4 Toronto, goes on down the list. But the state by state breakdown is just utterly fascinating. Like, if I told you that people from Kentucky's most frequent international destination is Tokyo, I would not believe that.
I kind of feel so. Here's the thing: the way they label this, it makes it sound like exactly what you just said. It makes it sound like
what it is.
People from like the origin city of travel is in this state, and then the ultimate travel was in this other city. And I just don't think that can be possible. So, for example, London's number one. London being number one is supported by the great states of New Jersey, South Carolina, and Missouri.
And New York. But, yes. No, this is why I think
New York is Toronto as number one.
Oh.
So what I'm saying is, like, that math doesn't work out unless they're saying that a bunch of people go through Newark in order to get
it does. This is great. I didn't think we were going to have a debate about this. I believe the math does work out because I believe London is the number 2 most popular destination in basically every state.
Okay. So, but then still it has to be number 1 enough for people from Missouri, people leaving the Kansas City Chiefs game and going to London. It has to be so dominant there.
You're killing me. Okay. I need to see this chart 10 years ago because I can guarantee I would strongly believe that Tokyo would make the list. It certainly wouldn't be number 3. No. Tokyo used to be very expensive.
Yeah.
Very, very expensive. It's not anymore. Like that. I mean, West Virginia's most frequent destination is Tokyo. Sure it is, people. North Carolina's most frequent
Alabama loves Tokyo. Alabama loves Tokyo.
Okay, so I guess you don't believe the list. I think the list is it's really fun to look at. Let's put it that way.
I think that all of what they have on this chart is true given the right definitions, and I don't think that their definition is clear. That's my take. But we can who knows? And you might be right that the weighting might be such that London just tips over the scales because of people leaving South Carolina. Like, that might be true. It's hard to understand how number 1 can be so not dominant anywhere else. Like,
that's
what's
3 major destinations by state. There is Tokyo, Cancun, and I guess you could say London. But to your point, London's not. Well,
it's
Toronto's
Tokyo and
pretty
Cancun.
Popular.
Yeah, but it's basically Tokyo and Cancun.
But what's happening here is this is the fallacy that happens with our political maps a lot of times. These states in the Great Plains and Mountains take up a lot of land and don't have a lot of people. So it appears that so many people are flying to Cancun when the actual gross numbers by population are significantly less than the landmass.
Yeah, I fully get that. It's the Tokyo one is what really the Tokyo versus London one really gets to me. Because, like, California and Florida, 2 of the most populous states, none of the top 5 most populous states, I think, have London as Jersey, maybe top 5. I can't remember exactly where it sits, but have London as their number 1. Anyway, the people don't need to hear me argue about this because I'm nitpicking something I don't fully understand.
No, so this is fun. What was fun to me about this is just the chatter going on about if you're a Cancun state or a Tokyo state and what that might mean for you. It's hilarious. But it led me to discover the true history of Cancun, which I did not know. It is, I believe in the 70s, it was like basically created because Mexico needed to get some dollars back in their economy. because they were running a trade deficit. So they're like, hey, how can we
Wait, it's a manufactured tourist destination?
manufactured tourist destination?
Vegas.
I believe over 5 years, they built all the resorts, they built the airport, they built everything.
Wow. Well done.
And it's just to give Americans an excuse to come down there and spend money.
Well done. Well done.
Isn't that interesting? I mean,
I do notice that the new Mexicans are not a big fan of the old Mexicans because
They go
New
to
Mexico, New Mexico has Vancouver as the number one city.
And to give you an idea of maybe just how small some of these numbers are, Arizona's most popular international destination is Taiwan. And the speculation, I believe the speculation, is that simply due to the Taiwan semiconductor manufacturing facility that was recently opened in Arizona and employees traveling back and forth. So these aren't huge numbers.
Yeah.
I think that's another reason why the London thing actually works.
Okay.
And then, to be fair, like you said, you have beef with New York, and you're right that it is Toronto. But Toronto's like a 2-hour flight. So I'm just going to use random numbers here. Let's say there's 50 million flights to Toronto. There might be like 49 million flights to London from New York City. And it would not register the way that this visual is created.
I get that. Fair enough. It could also be London, Ontario for some of these and not London. So this is...
Stop it.
All right, let's wrap it. Let's wrap it right there.
We will talk to you next week. Next week, we'll do our portfolio breakdown with research recommendations for 2026. We're excited for that. Yeah, for the premium subscribers. That plan on Supercast is called I Roll with Skippy and Doogles.
For everyone else, you will get a greatest hits montage that you can listen to across this year, and we'll be back with non-premium folks live in a couple weeks.
All right. Talk to you.
Thank you, everybody.